Dari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Asatara Sata Shri Śrimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai, Mathura Dhama Ki Jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Jai, Gangamaya Jamuna Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Nama Om Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane, Namaste Sarasvati Deve, Gauravani Pacharane, Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskachade Satarane, Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha, Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Panchakalpachubhyascha Kripasindhabhyeva Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it's May 30th, 2025, Bhaktivedanta Manor in London. We're reading from Śrimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 11, Text 1. Maitreya Uvacha Charama Sadvisheshanam Aneko Samyuta Sada Paramanu Savigneyo Nirnam Aikya Brahmo Yata. Please chant. Maitreya Uvacha Sarvamasa Visheshanam Aneko Samyuta Sada Paramanu Savigneyo Nirnam Aikya Brahmo Yata. Maitreya Uvacha Charamasad Visheshanam Aneko Samyuta Sada Paramanu Savigneyo Nirnam Aikya Brahmo Yataha. Maitreya Uvacha Charana Sadvisheshanam Aneko Samyuta Sada Paramanu Savigneyo Nirnam Aikya Brahmo Yata. Ladies. Maitreya Uvacha Charamasad Visheshanam Aneko Samyuta Sada Paramanu Savigneyo Nirnam Aikya Brahmo Yata. Maitreya Uvacha Charamasad Visheshanam Aneko Samyuta Sada Paramanu Savigneyo Nirnam Aikya Brahmo Yata. Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said, Charamaha, ultimate, Sat, effect, Visheshanam, symptoms, Anekaha, innumerable, Asamyutaha, unmixed, Sada, always, Parama Anuhu, atoms, Saha, that, Vigneyaha, should be understood, Nunam, of men, Aikya, oneness, Brahma, mistaken, Yataha, from which. Translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The material manifestation's ultimate particle, which is indivisible and not formed into a body, is called the atom. Now, we should note that the Sanskrit is not atom. The Sanskrit is Paramanu. Not just Anu, but Paramanu, the most small. It exists always as an invisible identity, even after the dissolution of all forms. So it's indivisible and invisible. The material body is but a combination of such atoms, but is misunderstood by the common man. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The atomic description of the Śrimad Bhāgavatam is almost the same as the modern science of atomism. So it's almost the same. Of course, since Prabhupada wrote this, there's been so many smaller particles than the atom discovered. And this is further described by the Paramanu Vada of Canada. In modern science also, atoms are accepted as the ultimate indivisible particles of which the universe is composed. So again, that was true when Prabhupada wrote this, but at this point, the smallest individual particles are smaller than atoms. Śrimad Bhāgavatam is the full text of all descriptions of knowledge, including the theory of atomism. The atom is the minute, subtle form of eternal time. Maitreya Uvacha Charama Sad Visheshanam Aneko Samyuta Sada Paramanu Savigneyo Nirnam Aikya Brahmo Yataha. The material manifestation's ultimate particle, which is indivisible and not formed into a body, is called the atom. It exists always as an invisible entity, even after the dissolution of all forms. The material body is but a combination of such atoms, but it is misunderstood by the common man. So I was recently at the ISKCON Communications Conference in Italy at Prabhupada, and the devotees from the Bhaktivedanta Institute happened to read this sentence, the atom, the devotees from the Institute, they were reading this sentence, the atom is the minute, subtle form of eternal time. And I said, well, that's quite a statement. I said, what verse and purport is that? Where's that from? Oh, it's from 3:11:1. Oh, okay. Can you send me any information about this? So Akandani Prabhu, he sent me all his notes about this purport, right? So then I come here and I find, what verse am I talking about? I wrote to him, I said, you're not going to believe what verse they're having me talk about. The same one that you were talking about in Italy. This was one of these sentences, I've read the Bhagavatam so many times, heard it so many times, but I didn't remember this sentence. The atom is the minute, subtle form of eternal time. Somehow that sentence didn't hit me the other times I read it. You know how this like, you kind of gloss over it. I'm like, whoa, the atom is the minute, subtle form of eternal time. It's a subtle form of time. So Vidura had asked about the units of time, so Maitreya took this opportunity to explain them in 3 groups of time. So there's scientific units of time, that's very minute, and it's based on atomic mathematics. Then there's practical units of time, based on the movements of the sun and the moon, and we use those in our everyday life. Yes. Then there's historical units of time, like yugas, right, and Lord Brahma's day, very, very large. So time, Maitreya is explaining, is an energy of Krishna, the all-attractive, which allows the changeless to experience change. We are actually changeless, correct? Krishna says this in the Bhagavad Gita, that we are changeless and he is changeless. But in this world, we're experiencing constant change, and this is done by time. Now, we can only know time by the changes it enables. That's also a very important concept. So my godbrother Mataresh had written 2 articles in Back to Godhead on time. You can still find them online. And he notes that time being the first impetus in the material creation. First there's time. The glance of the Lord on the material energy is identified as time. That glance is also identified as what personality? Sadashiva, yes, which we'll be getting to momentarily. So time is hitting the material energy, which is in the form of pradhan. Pradhan means that it's broken up into its smallest bits that can no longer be identified as anything in particular. So we could say that that is the atom. That when you break up matter into atoms, you can no longer identify it as particular things. Correct? Right? If we're identifying in terms of the way the scientists talk about elements, not the way the Shastra talks about elements, oxygen and hydrogen and gold and things like that, those are different combinations of atoms into molecules. And as soon as you break them up into atoms, you can no longer distinguish one thing from another. Is this clear to everybody? Yes? Something like, it's not the same, but something like you have the ingredients for cooking. If you have things like, water and flour and, You can make that into so many different things. Just a few, like 5 ingredients you can make into so many different things. But when you're broken them down into the ingredients themselves, you don't have those, you can't identify the things anymore. You can't say, well, here's a donut and here's a pancake and it's just the ingredients. So if you break things down into atoms, there's no longer trees and birds and curtains, and it's just, so this time hits this pradhan, and by hitting the pradhan, then it forms first into the modes of nature, and it forms first into space, which is, think about this, so before time hits the pradhan, there's no space. Can we even conceive of that? That there's no space. Huh? And then within space, gradually there becomes gases and radiant energy and liquid energy and solid energy and so forth. And then Brahma is there, and he takes now these more ingredients and he forms them into the creation. So each of these Mahabhutas, space, gases, radiant energy, liquid energy, and solid energy, we have a corresponding sense organ by which we can perceive it. We can produce space with our we can access space with our ear. Right? We can access earth with smell. We can access water with taste. Like, if you dry, we did this when we were children, you dry your tongue off with a paper towel, and then you put something on it and you can't taste it because there's no liquid. Right? If you didn't do that in school, you can try that later and see for yourself. But with time, there is no corresponding sense organ. How do we perceive time? We can't. Because time is the first agitator of this material energy. So we can only perceive time by its effects. We can only perceive time by the changes it enables. We have no other way to measure it. We measure it by movements of heavenly bodies, and we measure it by changes, especially by decay. Now, why do we care about this? And I will fully and freely admit that the first time I read this section of the Bhagavatam, I read it wholly and solely out of duty. Because I was told, you have to read through the Bhagavatam from beginning to end. Now, that's not absolutely true. Otherwise, we couldn't let anyone come in this class who hadn't read the whole Bhagavatam up until now. So that's not like an absolute thing. And we couldn't distribute Krishna book to people because they probably haven't read the first 9 cantos of the Bhagavatam. But anyway, in general, one should read consecutively because one consecutively understands philosophy. So at that time, I was in the movement, I guess, a year or so, year and a half, something like that. And I'd had a baby, and because I had a baby, I wasn't allowed to do much service in the temple because I was considered unclean having a baby. So I'd come to the morning program and the evening program, and otherwise I was home with my baby. So what am I going to do all day? In those days, we were told that if we didn't eat the temple prasadam, we were in Maya. That if we cooked at home, we were in Maya. So I had only one pot of 1 liter to heat up milk. Right? I didn't really have like a kitchen. And we also didn't have any furniture. I mean, we had literally 1 rocking chair. That was the only furniture we had, which made the house very easy to clean because there was nothing to clean. We just put out a sleeping bag on the floor at night. So to clean every single square centimeter of my very small flat, it only took me a half an hour. Right? So then what was I going to do all day? I used to also answer correspondence through the BBT. They'd send me a big envelope of letters, and then I would type the answers on a typewriter and mail it back to the BBT, and they would mail it out to the people. But what else was I going to do? So I was reading Prabhupada's books all day. Of course, I was being told every day in Bhagavatam class how much Maya I was in being a householder with a child, but that's another story. So I was reading Prabhupada's books all day, considering that I was in Maya just reading Prabhupada's books all day. And I thought, I have to read in order. So I got to this particular chapter, and I'm like, huh? What? What is this doing here? What is this about? Why do I have to read this? Okay, I'll read it. So I was reading it, but I don't think I assimilated it much. I was taking a lot of notes at that time on the Bhagavatam, on little cards, like little index cards. I had a file with headings and stuff. But I don't think I took any notes on this chapter, which is probably why this sentence that the atom is the minute subtle form of eternal time never really hit me, even in my subsequent readings of the Bhagavatam. I was very excited when I got to Lord Varaha. Finally, Leela, I remember that day very, very clearly when I finished this section of the Bhagavatam. So we might be thinking, what's this doing here? Canto Prabhu asked the same question about the movements of the planets in the 5th canto. Why is this here? One very dear friend of mine recently passed away, and she got injured, and she lived for about a week before she passed away. So I for sure, she didn't say, now while I'm getting ready to die, can you please talk to me about how we can measure time by the movements of the atom? Would any of us ask that? Well, here I am on my deathbed. I'm going to die any minute. Can you please talk to me about how to measure time? But that's what Maharaj Pariksit asked. It's one of the questions that he asked. And we're already here in the 3rd canto. I'm sure he's already, at least a day has passed, correct? Of his 7 days. He must be down to 5.5 or 6 days when this is being discussed. So why is it being discussed? This is a very important question to ask. All these topics must be very important, irrespective of the fact that my 19-year-old self didn't think so. They must be important, and they must be relevant to us. So what's the relevancy here? So in order for us to fully know and love God, we have to relate to him not only in his transcendent feature beyond the world. That's not enough. Even if you're a cloistered monk at the top of a mountain who never sees anybody else and just puts down a bucket through a hole in the floor to get food. There are monasteries like this, right? And you don't even talk to your other monks. And when I was teaching sociology of religion, one devotee got a video for the class of this Christian monastery where the monks have a vow of silence, except on Saturdays for 4 hours. So for 4 hours on Saturday, they would play games outside. All the monks would play games outside, and they could talk to each other. I guess they figured if you didn't talk at all, that it caused some sort of mental imbalance. But they took this vow of silence. They didn't interact with the outside world, except just to receive food like that. Just meditating all the time on God in transcendence. But you can't be completely oblivious to the world. First of all, they had to play once a week. But you have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to bathe. Even they had a little teeny tiny cell, they called it, to do their study and prayer. It was almost like a prison, really. Actually, in astrology, spending time, you're not going to want to hear this, spending time living in ashrams or prisons shows up very similarly in an astrological chart. I have that in my chart, so that's why I say that. I'll say, what kind of place do you think? Oh, I live in ashrams. Oh, that's what this is. So these little cells, they're tiny little cells. You still have to clean them, right? You have to interact with the world to some extent. So if you say, well, I'm just going to meditate on God as transcendence, then you have to deny the world as evil. And then how do you interact with the world in a way that brings you closer to the Lord? One of the main reasons I joined the Hare Krishna movement is I was looking for a way to be spiritual in addition to some kind of spiritual practice. Every religion is going to have some times of prayer and this and that, but how do you become spiritual in your life? So this is a world of time, and it's a world of matter. And if we don't understand Krishna also as time and Krishna as matter, then we're going to be in a world of duality, where we're going to be saying, that's God, and this is the world. Now, Krishna also loves this world. It's part of him. He cares about it. And Krishna has desires for how this world should be run and maintained. He actually cares. And sometimes Prabhupada compares the world to a prison, but the government cares about the prison. They care how the prison is run. It's not that they don't care. In your home, you care about your bathroom. Yes? You care whether or not it works. You care whether or not, you don't live there, I hope. But you still care about it. You care about your storage closet or your storage shed. Again, places where you don't live. But you care about them. You want them in good working order, I hope, right? You want them clean. You want them functional. So Krishna cares about this world, and he wants it run in a way that we can help with. We don't just have a service with the deities on the altar. We don't just have a service with cooking prasadam. We don't just have a service with distributing books. We also have a service with how the world is run. And the system for how the world is run is called, what is it called? Varnashram. And Krishna cares about that. Prabhupada will often say there is no such thing as Hindu Dharma. What we call Hindu Dharma is Varnashram Dharma. How do you run the world? Now also, we're here because we have material desires. Maybe all of you are Nityasiddhas who came with a mission, but I'm certainly here because I have material desires. And we need to dovetail those desires in service. We cannot kill those desires because then we would be dead ourselves. So we have a mission to do for the Lord in this world, not just in our sadhana, and we also need some way to use our desires in service. As Krishna tells Arjuna, you're going to act according to your nature, either for me or for Maya. So how are we going to do that? Then we have to have this vision of Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva. We have to have this vision of how the Lord is simultaneously transcendent, but he's also in this world. And this verse is talking about how the Lord is in this world as the Paramanu. And that this Paramanu is two things. It's matter, and it is it's a subtle form of time. Okay. So it's the smallest energetic particle of time, and it's also the smallest particle of matter. Does this kind of a description remind us of how scientists talk like about electricity? That it's both a particle and a wave? How they talk about light? That it's both a particle and a wave? We hear this in modern science talking about something that is both matter and energy. So if we're going to put this in very, very simple language, so everything in this world is the Lord's body. A description of this world as the Lord's body is given in the second canto, the 8th canto, and the 12th canto. Must be important, yes? Again, Mars Purkit is not going to be listening to frivolous things, and the Bhagavatam's not going to be talking this Kaitava Dharma Projito. We've thrown out cheating religion. It's important to understand this, and Krishna gives a whole bunch of the Bhagavad Gita. The 7th, 9th, 10th, and 15th chapter has extensive verses about how we can understand the world as the Lord's body. Srila Prabhupada would consistently say, if you want to see God as he is recommending. Right? As the taste of water, as the light of the sun, and so forth. So this is understanding the world as the Lord's body. But the Lord is also the soul of the body. Like, I'm just the soul of my body. I'm not also my body. Whereas Krishna is his body and the soul of his body, both. Correct? Yes? So Queen Kunti, she says, you are the personality of the form of the universe, and you are the soul of the universe. You are the personality of the form of the universe, and you are the soul of the universe. Now, I'd like us to imagine how we would live if we saw everything in this world as the body of God animated by the Lord as the soul. So first, let's look at what we shouldn't do. What is duality when we don't have this vision? And then we're really going to focus on what does it mean if we actually had this vision that the Bhagavatam is propounding? And how do we think and act according to that? So in duality, this is a very important point. Why don't I see the world as both the form and the energy of God. Why don't I see this world as the body of God and God as the soul of the universe? Because I want to enjoy it. You understand? Very, very simple. Does a meat eater see the animal as a living entity with feelings and desires? They can't. Most people who slaughter their animals just give their animals numbers. Huh? If someone rapes somebody else, they can't see the person they rape as a person. They have to see them as an object. Yeah? If you're abusing someone, of course, if you're abused, there's abusers who abuse like one time violently or keep somebody locked up in their basement. If someone's abusing someone on an ongoing basis, like someone's abusing a family member, that they're not keeping locked up in a basement, they manipulate that person to believe that their abuser actually cares about them. They bind them with subtle chains. But you cannot abuse someone that you see as a person. You might be able to manipulate them into thinking you do, but it's impossible. As soon as you understand someone is another living entity with feelings and desires like you just can't exploit them. But even so-called material objects, there is no such thing ultimately. Everything's part of the body of God. An example I give, like in our body, so the ends of our nails are dead, yes? And the ends of our hair are dead. But I can perceive what the ends of my nails, or if you were to hit my hair, I would know that you had contacted me. You follow? Yes? So Krishna is the soul of the universe. This universe is his body, and therefore he is aware. When touching this lectern or touching this microphone or using it, and he's not aware of it like I'm aware I can see the microphone. He's aware because it's part of his body. But if I want to exploit this world, I can't perceive it like that. Krishna hides. He hides himself. Avajnanti mam mudha manusim tanamashritam. He's hiding himself. And because we don't see that it's him, we think, oh, here's stuff for me to enjoy. And even if we're somewhat religious and we think God has given me things, we think God has given me things to do with as I like. God has given me the animals to kill and to exploit. God has given me women to rape. God has given me stuff to steal. God has given me stuff to use as I like, whatever I do with it. Using things in Krishna's service means that we actually see them as already part of Krishna. We're perceiving that connection with Krishna. So this duality is actually necessary if we want to think we're an independent enjoyer. And of course, this ability to not see God, to see that, oh, this is just stuff I can do with whatever I want, that ability to think that way also comes from Krishna. So that's also pretty far out. The energy of illusion by which we can no longer see the Lord is also the energy of the Lord. He also gives us, even when we're forgetting Krishna. So I had one devotee tell me recently, 90% of the time I want to remember Krishna and 10% of the time I spend forgetting Krishna. So I didn't have a chance to talk to this person much about it, but I was thinking, your ability to forget Krishna is also Krishna. You can't get away from him. But this duality is given to us, this conception of duality is given to us by the Lord out of his grace to fulfill our desires. We also see this kind of duality in thinking that spiritual life is only happening in a temple, or it's only happening when I do my sadhana. That's a kanistha adhikari mentality, by the way. And this shows up with thinking, only the ashram residents are really devotees, and the people who are working outside in the world as Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, that's all just Maya, second class, or they're part-time devotees or something like that. That's a kanistha adhikari mentality. God is only in my temple. He's only in the temple. He's only in the deity. He's only in the altar. He's not everywhere. And when we see the world in a dualistic fashion, then guess what happens? We're miserable. Then the world becomes dukkhalayam shasvatam. It becomes a place of misery. As soon as we see things separately from Krishna, we're miserable. The world itself is not exactly inherently miserable. It's our consciousness of separateness that brings us to misery. So what consciousness would we like to have? So in researching this verse, and first I looked at the verse, I'm like, oh my God, I actually have to speak on this. And then I thought, well, I just got all this material from Nakandani. I can look at that. And then something else occurred to me. If the paramanu is the smallest form both of matter and of the energy that activates matter, then that means it is both the efficient cause and the material cause. Whoa, I thought, I know some place where the efficient and material cause is discussed. Does anyone know where that is? Come on, I know this is a scholarly temple. This is the test to see, do you read Srila Prabhupada's books? Well, but there's a specific place in our books where the efficient cause and the material cause is discussed, and it's discussed in relationship to a particular personality who happens to be in a painting on the wall behind me. I'm giving you more and more and more and more hints. No. Aw, good guess. Good try. Okay, I talked about it a little bit early on in the class. The Lord's glance, his time. Huh? Advaita Acharya. From Adi 6, 17 to 21. This is just the translation. Lord Vishnu, in his efficient aspect, glances over the material energy, and Sri Advaita, as the material cause, creates the material world. Although the Sankhya philosophy, which is what the section of the Bhāgavatam we're getting there, accepts that the material ingredients are the cause. The creation of the world never arises from dead matter. The Lord infuses the material ingredients with his own creative potency. Then, by the power of the Lord, creation takes place. In the form of Advaita, he infuses the material ingredients with creative energy. Therefore, Advaita is the original cause of creation. Sri Advaita Acharya is the creator of millions and millions of universes, and by his expansions as Garbhodakshai Vishnu, he maintains each and every universe. So Advaita Acharya is a manifestation of the Padamanu, actually. Is further expanding Kshirodakshai Vishnu. Kshirodakshai Vishnu is also the Padamatma and the Padamanu. The Padamatma enters into every Padamanu, which we loosely translate as Adam. But the Padamatma enters into every Padamanu and is the Padamanu. So the Lord is the Padamanu, and the Lord also infuses the Padamanu with his energy of time. He is the body and he is the soul. And the personality of the Lord who does this is who? Come on, now you should all get this right, unless I'm a terrible, terrible teacher. Advaita Acharya. Am I that bad? I should give myself a failing grade here. Or else you're all afraid to get it wrong. And then I should also give myself a failing grade that I've made you all so nervous that you're all afraid to get it wrong. The particular personality who is the efficient and material cause, who is himself the Padamanu, and also the energy of time that infuses the Paramanu, is Advaita Acharya. Is that cool? I think that's totally cool. I read that, I'm like, yes. Then another one of my absolute favorite verses, this is a favorite verse, was a favorite verse of my late godbrother Sadaputta in trying to also explain scientific basis for Krishna consciousness, right? The name of that book that Prabhupada gave to Bhakti Swarup Damodar. And that's from the Brahma Samhita 535. Ekopya Saurachaitam Jagadanda Koti Achakturasti Jagadanda Chayatananta Andantarasta Padamanu Chayantarastam Govindamadi Purusham Tam Maham Bhajami. So this is a nice verse about the Padamanu. And the translation we have that's attributed to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is he is an undifferentiated entity. as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. So again, we're looking at this Paramanu as both the substance and the energy. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. And the purport, which is also attributed to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is Krishna is the highest of all entities. In him is an entity which is termed Chit, spiritual, which is distinct from the principle of limitation. By his inconceivable power, he can at will create numberless universes. All the mundane universes owe their origin to the transformation of his external energy. Again, his abode is beyond human conception. Since all worlds, limited and spiritual, Chit exist in him, and he resides simultaneously in his fullness and entirety in all the atoms of the world. All pervasiveness is only a localized aspect of the majesty of Krishna, the Lord of all. Although he is all pervasive, yet in his existence everywhere in a medium shape consists his spiritual lordship beyond human conception. This argument favors the doctrine of simultaneous inconceivable distinction and non-distinction, and knocks down the contaminating Mayavad and other allied doctrines. When Sariputta would talk about this verse, which again was one of his favorites, he would use in the example of the pastime explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about how one time our Lord Brahma, our four-headed Lord Brahma, went to see Lord Narayan in Svetadweep of this universe. And he comes to the door, and the doorkeepers come. Who is that? Brahma. I want to see the Lord. Okay. They go to see the Lord, and the Lord says, ask him, which Brahma? Which Brahma? Goes back, which Brahma? Which Brahma? Like, what's which Brahma? There's only one Brahma in the universe. I'm the father of the four Kumaras. My dear Lord, it's the four-headed Lord Brahma, the father of the four Kumaras. All right, show him in. So he comes in, and what does he see? Who does he see? So many Brahmas, right? He asked the Lord. He said, why'd you ask me? Why'd you ask me? Which Brahma? What kind of a question is this? And the Lord then shows him. There's Brahmas with 10 heads. 10,000 heads. 10 million heads. He must be pretty smart. These heads represent directions, by the way. Wrap your head around that one. There's a universe that has 10 million directions. They must have an interesting compass. And they're all bowing down to the Lord. And the Lord says, so, how is everything? Right? Like we see somebody. On my way here to the temple, I saw some lady. How are you doing? And I thought, do I tell her I have a broken hand, or do I just say everything's fine? So I said, everything's fine. And then I said, how are you? Everything's fine. So we were both probably lying. But anyway, so the Lord asks, he says, how is everything going? And the Lord Brahmas say, everything's fine. I'm sure there was some problem in their universe. But they say, by your mercy, all the demons have been defeated in all directions. Now it's explained that each of these Lord Brahmas thought Krishna was only in his universe. So our Lord Brahma saw the Lord is in one place. And all the Lord Brahmas are coming to that one place. And our Lord Brahma saw all the Lord Brahmas. But the other Lord Brahmas, they only saw themselves in the Lord. They didn't see the other Lord Brahmas. And they thought they had gone to the Svetadweep in their universe. So Sariputta Prabhu gives this story as an example of Krishna's inconceivable use of space and time. In relation to this verse, Ekopya Sarachaitam Jagananda Koti, Yat Chaktirasti Jagananda Chayantara, Yat Yandantarasta Panamanu Chayantarastam. So I've given this example many times, but it bears repeating in today's reference to today's verse. So Mother Yasoda looks in Krishna's mouth and she sees what? the universe. We can get a picture of that. We have paintings of it. We can all, remember one of those paintings. We can look at the painting. Oh, I can understand that. Mother Yasoda is looking at Krishna's mouth. She sees the universe, very clear. But she also sees who inside Krishna's mouth? Herself. She doesn't see a picture of herself. She doesn't see a projection of herself. She actually sees herself. Does this start to get more confusing? When Lord Brahma is praying to Krishna in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto, he said, Mother Yasoda saw the universe, including me, in your abdomen, but she was also seeing you outside, and I'm seeing you outside. How is that possible? That means we're all in the abdomen of the Lord also right now. In some universe, Mother Yasoda is looking in Krishna's mouth and seeing all of us having a Bhāgavatam class. Maharaj Prithu's benediction he wanted for was millions of years so he could attend all the Bhāgavatam classes simultaneously. Did you ever want to do that? Like you go on Mayapur TV and you're like, okay, how many classes can I listen to today? But you can't really listen to more than once. So he wanted to listen to all of them. So anyway, so Lord Brahma is like, he's saying, how is it that I'm seeing, Mother Yasoda was seeing herself? So that already becomes pretty inconceivable. Okay, let's make it a little bit more inconceivable. So we're in this universe that's already inside Krishna. And in every Padamanu, there's Krishna, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, in his entirety. So we can get a picture of that. We've seen paintings of that, all the atoms, and there's the Lord inside the atoms, right? You can picture that? No problem. Can you put them together? The universe is inside Krishna, and in every atom of the universe, there's Krishna. And in every atom of the universe is inside Krishna, who's within every atom, and in every atom, there's Krishna, who's within it. Can you do that? Could we make a painting of that? Could we commission an artist? Therefore, we say achintya. All right, how are we going to actually understand that Krishna is the personality of the form of the universe and he's the soul of the universe so that we can act in Krishna, what? Consciousness. All right, there's a very nice meditative verse from the 11th canto, 11, 15, 12. Padamanu maye chittam. Chittam means consciousness, yes? Bhutanam mai rajayan. Kala sukshmar tatam yogi. Lahimanam avapnuyat. Now, shukshma means very, very fine. Actually, there's a nice description in the Bhagavatam that the mercy of the Lord is very fine, one of Narayani's favorite verses. How the Lord's mercy is sukshma, very, very fine. And the BBT translation of this verse is, I exist within everything, and I am therefore the essence of the atomic constituents of material elements. By attaching his mind to me in this form, the yogi may achieve the perfection called lagima, by which he realizes the subtle atomic substance of time. So the idea is that if we meditate on the Lord as both the elements of the material world and the energizing principle of the material world, then we can access him in the form of time. So we want to do both. We want to meditate on the Lord as the world and the Lord who's moving the world. So some of you are probably aware that I worked for some years with the devotee Kamalasita. She lives in Germany, on this book called Krishna Meditations. And in this book, we took these descriptions from the Bhagavatam and from the Bhagavad Gita, and we wrote meditations on them. So I thought I'd read to you the meditation that we did on time. And we did this not on today's Bhagavatam verse, but on Krishna's statement in the Bhagavad Gita 10:30, where he says, among subduers I am time. So this is our meditation on that. So many means can be used to try to subdue an unruly person. Sweet words, force, distraction, and promises. Water can subdue fire, and food can subdue hunger. In the natural world, plants, animals, and humans try to overcome, subjugate, and in some way bring other living entities and matter itself under control. Some of these methods work well, some work poorly, but none is always effective. No matter how expert we are at winning over obstacles, competitors, and enemies, we sometimes lose, and sometimes there is no clear winner at all. Yet one subduing force always wins, and that is time. Time eventually breaks everything down and back to its original parts. So does that also relate to today's verse? Right? That when there's destruction, everything is broken back down into the Paramanu. The Pradhan is simply made up of the Paramanu as particles of matter. And then again, it's the Paramanu as the subtle form of time that activates the Paramanu as the subtle form of matter. So time eventually breaks everything down and back to its original parts. Time destroys all civilizations with their structures and histories. No one can ever defeat time, yet time defeats everyone. Time even changes the shape and nature of continents, rivers, and oceans. All must bow before inexorable time. On a daily basis, time forces us to sleep, eat, and engage in other bodily functions. Right? Even if you're a cloistered monk who has a vow of silence, you still have to deal with time. In the scriptures, time is often associated with the Lord, and we can appreciate him as the ultimate victor, the supreme. Regardless of our plans, his plans reign supreme. We can try to use time, beat time, save time, to look forward in time, but a better alternative is to accept and surrender to time as a manifestation of our master. We can strive to remember him in this moment and dedicate each moment to his glory, always in the role of a servant and always submitting happily to his ultimate victory. In that mood, time takes nothing from us, but rather fills us with his own unlimited sense of victory. Then we realize that we are eternal. As eternal beings, time has no frightening meaning for us at all. Rather, time is only of concern to those who foolishly try to wrest the position of master from the Lord. So if we want to get out of this mood of duality and we want to become Krishna conscious in every aspect of our life, we can meditate today on how the Lord is the Paramanu, both as the smallest of the smallest particle and also as the smallest and most subtle of the material energies activating that particle in the form of time. So today I'm not going to take questions because then I run over time. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki jai.